You ever hit a money goal and then secretly panic? Like, what now? You grind for years. You finally see your accounts cross that first $100,000. And instead of feeling rich, you feel this weird mix of pride and terror. You start asking, is this a fluke? Am I about to screw this up? Why does everyone act like this is the finish line when it just feels like level 1 of a much bigger game? That little voice is the reason this path from $100,000 to $1 million is so misunderstood. My name's Andy, and I probably spend way too much of my life thinking about money. Specifically, how normal people like you go from, I'm finally not broke, to, wait, I could actually hit 7 figures. And what nobody really tells you is that the rules that got you to $100,000 are not the same rules that take you to 1 million. The first stage is survival. The second stage is systems. And if you try to stay in survival mode the whole time, you burn out before you ever get close. Here's the trap that almost everybody falls into. You hustle your way to 6 figures of net worth by saying yes to every shift, every side gig, every coupon, every little money-saving hack. You obsess over every latte, you hoard cash because debt felt like drowning, and you tell yourself you'll loosen up later. Then your income rises, the numbers get bigger, and without even noticing, lifestyle creep eats up every raise, while your money just sits there scared in a savings account earning like 0.5%. Same brain, new numbers, same stuck feeling. And what makes it worse is that most of the advice you find either talks to people with 0 saved or to people already worth 7 figures. Almost no one breaks down the weird middle, that stretch from $100,000 to $1 million, where you have enough to matter but not enough to feel safe. The stakes feel higher, the fear of losing gets louder, and suddenly every decision feels like it could either catapult you forward or erase 5 years of effort overnight. So in this video, I want to walk you step by step through how the path actually works, not the Instagram version. We're going to talk about why the first $100,000 feels like pushing a boulder uphill, why the next $900,000 is more about getting leverage than grinding, and how to design a setup where your money is doing more work than you are. Think of this like turning your net worth into a snowball rolling down a mountain instead of a backpack you carry on your shoulders forever. Before we zoom out to the full map, let's zoom in on where you are. If you've hit that first $100,000, that alone already puts you way ahead of the average person. Studies keep finding that the median retirement account balance in the United States is around $6,000 to $5,000 across all ages. A scary number of people still say they couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing. So if you've stacked 6 figures in any form, you've already proven you can do hard things with money. The question now is, can you switch from scrappy survivor to intentional builder? And that switch is more psychological than mathematical. Up to $100,000, every extra dollar you save feels huge, because your net worth might jump 1% in a week if you skip enough nights out. After that, it starts to feel like your effort barely moves the needle. You save $500, and your net worth chart just shrugs. That's the point where a lot of people give up, loosen everything, and let lifestyle creep eat the compounding that was just about to get interesting. The people who actually make it to 1 million are the ones who understand that this plateau is not a sign to quit. It is the sign you're ready to change strategies. Alright, so how do you actually change strategies without blowing everything up? Let's start with a simple picture. Imagine your net worth journey as 3 big chapters. Chapter 1 is 0 to $100,000, where your main job is to stop the bleeding and get out of high-interest debt. Then you build basic savings and prove to yourself that you can live on less than you earn. Chapter 2 is $100,000 to $500,000, where the game shifts to scaling your savings rate, investing consistently, and growing your income. Chapter 3 is $500,000 to $1 million, where tiny percentage moves of your net worth start doing more than your day-to-day choices. Each chapter feels totally different, and that's exactly why the path is so confusing until someone names it. Let's break down Chapter 1 really fast so the rest makes sense, because if you skip this foundation, everything on top cracks. When you were building up to your first 6 figures, your main enemy was chaos. Debt payments everywhere, random subscriptions, zero plan, zero margin. You win that stage by simplifying and tightening. You build a basic emergency fund, maybe 1 to 3 months of expenses at first. You attack high-interest debt like it insulted your family, and you get your budget to the point where you know, roughly, where every dollar goes. You do not need to be perfect, and you just need to prove you can consistently produce a surplus every month. That surplus is the engine that eventually becomes your path to 1 million. Now let's talk about the part nobody really explains, which is what changes at $100,000. At that point, your money is finally heavy enough that compounding starts to matter. Picture one person with $10,000 invested and another with $100,000, both earning about 7% a year in a simple index fund. The first person earns around $700 in a year. Nice, but it still feels tiny. The second person earns about $7,000 in the same year without lifting a finger. That is like your investments secretly working a part-time job for you. If you layer monthly contributions on top of that, the gap just keeps widening. This is where you hear that classic line that your first $100,000 is the hardest. Up to that point, almost all of the growth is coming from you, your hours, your discipline. You're saying no. After that, more and more of the growth starts to come from the money itself. The problem is, most people never fully step into that new identity. They still think like someone trying to scrape together $20 of savings instead of someone managing a 6-figure portfolio. So they either stay in paralysis or they chase shiny betting-style moves because they're bored. Let's do some simple math so this feels real. Say you have $100,000 invested and you decide you want to hit $1 million in, let's say 20 years. If your money earns around 7% a year on average, that $100,000 all by itself would grow to almost $400,000 over that time. That means the remaining $600,000 has to come from the money you add. Roughly speaking, that is like investing around $1,000 per month consistently for 20 years. That sounds big, but when you break it into 2 working adults or 1 high earner, plus a small side hustle, it suddenly looks doable. Now imagine you can push that monthly investing up to $2,000 as your income grows. Now you're not just creeping toward 1 million, you're locking it in, often on a timeline closer to 15 years instead of 20. This is the part nobody tells you when you're refreshing stock charts all day. The secret path from $100,000 to $1 million is way less about picking miracle investments and way more about methodically increasing the size of your regular contributions while keeping your lifestyle 1 or 2 steps behind your income. So practically, what has to change once you hit that 6-figure mark? First, your safety net needs to go from good enough to professional grade. If you're still working a normal job, think about building 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash, so every market wobble does not feel like a crisis. That emergency fund is the wall that separates your investing brain from your panic brain. When you know rent is covered for months, you're way less likely to yank money out of the market at the worst possible time. Second, your investing order starts to matter a lot more. In your early days, just getting anything invested was a win. 6 figures. Choosing where to put each dollar can be worth tens of thousands of extra dollars over your lifetime. That often means grabbing every bit of employer match in your workplace retirement plan first, because that is 100% return on those dollars immediately. Then looking at tax-advantaged accounts like an IRA, which as of the recent limits lets most people contribute around $7,000 per year. Those boring moves rarely go viral, but they quietly lower your taxes and increase your compounding for decades. Third, the biggest lever you have now is not clipping coupons, it is upgrading your income. There is a point where cutting another $5 from your grocery bill just does not move the needle, but an extra $5,000 of income does. If your average savings rate right now is, say, 15% of your take-home pay, the path to 1 million often comes from nudging that to 20 or 25% by stacking raises, promotions, and smarter career moves. That might mean learning a skill on nights and weekends for a year, switching companies for a bigger jump, or turning a small side hustle into something that actually pays $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you're 32 years old with $100,000 invested, making $80,000 per year after taxes. If you can invest about $1,500 a month, raise that with your income over time, and stay roughly around a 7% average return, You're very realistically on a path to $1 million by your late 40s. Add a spouse doing something similar, and you're talking multiple millions by your 60s. No crazy bets, no perfect timing, just boring consistency that most people underestimate because it does not feel dramatic. Quick pause here. If this kind of breakdown is helping you see your own path more clearly, do me a small favor and hit subscribe and like. It costs you nothing. It tells the algorithm to actually show you more stuff that upgrades your money life, and it helps keep this channel running so I can keep making deep dives like this instead of 30-second fluff. Alright, let's get back into it. Now, there is a dark side to this middle stretch that almost no one warns you about. Between $100,000 and $1 million, your biggest risk is not that you never invest. It is that you do invest, but you keep interrupting the compounding. You panic sell in a downturn, you pull big chunks out for lifestyle upgrades every few years, or you constantly hop in and out of different strategies because your friend told you about the new thing. Every time you reset your plan, you reset the clock on compounding. Think about it like trying to roll that snowball down a hill. Getting it started is the hardest part, and that was your grind to $100,000. Once it is rolling, if you keep picking it up and moving it to a different hill every 10 minutes, it never gets big enough to matter. The path nobody talks about is not about finding the perfect hill. It is about picking a good enough hill and then letting time do what time does. There is also a psychological shift you have to make with risk. Early on, you might have felt like you had nothing to lose, so you were willing to take wild swings. Then suddenly, you have six figures and every dip feels personal. You watch your portfolio fall 10% in a rough year and see $10,000 evaporate on a screen. That can make you so scared of volatility that you dial your risk way down at the exact moment you need your money to keep growing. The people who win in this stage learn to separate price swings from real loss. One of the simplest ways to protect yourself from your own emotions is to automate as much as possible. Set up automatic contributions to your investment accounts on the same day you get paid, and set an asset allocation that matches your actual time horizon. If you're still 20 or 30 years from needing the money, having most of it in broad stock index funds makes sense for a lot of people, even if the ride is bumpy. If you're closer to needing cash, you blend in more bonds and cash. The key is to decide your mix when you're calm and then ignore the noise. Let's talk about lifestyle creep for a second, because this is the silent killer of the $100,000 to $1 million journey. Income rises, tastes upgrade, and suddenly your savings rate that used to be 20% quietly shrinks to 10%. Even though your salary doubled, the car payment gets bigger, the rent or mortgage jumps, vacations become more frequent. And every raise is spoken for before it hits your account. You feel like you're working harder than ever, but your net worth graph is flat. A practical way around this is to make a simple rule for yourself. Anytime your income goes up, only let your lifestyle rise by half of that amount. If you get a 10% raise, bump your lifestyle by 5% and send the other 5% straight to investments and long-term goals. That way, you still feel your life getting better, but you also keep accelerating your path to 1 million instead of treading water. Over 10 or 15 years, that one habit is often worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I want to give you a mental model for the whole journey so you can see where you are on the map. From $0 to $100,000, your identity is builder. You are learning basic discipline, fixing past mistakes, maybe digging out of credit card debt where interest was 20% or more, and proving you can delay gratification. From $100,000 to $500,000, your identity upgrades to Allocator. Your job is to decide where each extra dollar goes among debt payoff, savings, investing, and fun. From $500,000 to $1 million, your identity shifts again to something like Steward. At that point, small percentage changes in your net worth are worth more than entire months of work. For example, a 5% move on a $500,000 portfolio is $25,000 in a year. That is more than many people's annual savings. In that stage, your biggest job is to avoid big mistakes, keep taxes reasonable, and make sure your investments line up with the life you actually want to live. The cool part is that you do not have to wait until you're rich to start acting like that steward. When you're at $100,000, you can already ask questions like, if I keep doing exactly this for 10 years, where does that put me and do I like that answer? If not, you do not need a magic stock. You probably need a higher savings rate and a better income plan. Many people find out that bumping their effective savings rate from 15 to 25% through a mix of raises and smarter spending cuts 5 to 10 years off their journey to 1 million. Another lens on this is credit and safety. Average FICO credit scores in the United States are now over 700, around 715 last I checked, which means many people technically qualify for lots of loans. The The point of getting your finances together is not so you can borrow more, it is so that you can borrow less and on better terms when you truly need to. Keeping your credit strong, your debts low, and your emergency fund solid gives you the freedom to make aggressive investing moves without feeling one paycheck away from disaster. I also want to be real about something. The path from $100,000 to $1 million rarely feels exciting in the moment. It feels like logging into your accounts each month, seeing your net worth creep up by 1 or 2% and thinking, that is it. Then, 5 years go by, and you realize your investments are generating more income every year than your first job ever paid you. That is the turning point where you suddenly see how this scales. So if you feel stuck at that 6-figure level, I want you to try this exercise. Pull up your numbers, add up your net worth, and write down 3 versions of your future. One where you change nothing, one where you push your savings rate up by 5 percentage points, and one where you push it up by 10 and work on increasing your income. Use any simple online calculator to project where those paths land 10, 15, and 20 years from now. When you see the difference in black and white, the small sacrifices today suddenly look tiny compared to the payoff. And remember, this is not about being perfect. There will be months where you save less, life happens, jobs change, kids show up, health surprises you. The goal is not to hit some flawless sequence of contributions. The goal is to have a default plan that pulls you toward 1 million, even when you're not paying attention. Automations, habits, and a clear sense of your next milestone are what keep you on track in the messy middle. If you're sitting at, say, $150,000 and feeling like you're behind, take a breath. You're not. Most people never get there at all. The fact that you're more even thinking about the path to 1 million means you're already playing a completely different game than the average person who is still living paycheck to paycheck with no plan. Your job now is not to beat yourself up. It is to design the next 10 years on purpose. And so here is the real secret nobody talks about. $1 million is not this mystical number that belongs only to tech founders and lottery winners. It is a math problem, a time problem, and a behavior problem. If you consistently invest a meaningful percentage of a growing income into simple, diversified assets, give it enough years, and avoid blowing yourself up with debt or panic selling, the odds start shifting heavily in your favor. You do not control the market, but you do control your savings rate, your career choices, and your lifestyle. And if you're thinking, Andy, this is all nice, but my situation is messy, I hear you. Everybody's path has weird twists. Maybe you're starting later. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you're dealing with loans that feel enormous. The principles still hold. Get your safety net solid. Eliminate high-interest debt. Automate and grow your investing, and focus on raising your earning power over time. Stack those 4 pieces for long enough, and one day you'll look up, check your accounts, and realize you're the person with a 7-figure net worth you used to watch on YouTube. Alright, that is the path from $100,000 to $1 million that most people never really lay out. It is not flashy, but it works. If you got any value out of this, please hit subscribe and tap, like so we can keep this channel running and I can keep making honest, deep dive money videos for you. I appreciate you more than you know, and I will see you in the next one.